the loudest scream in the world is silence. My friends, what if I told you? They're not breaking down because you said something cruel. They're not regretting it because of your last message. What's driving them insane, what's slowly chewing at their soul, is the fact that you said nothing at all, not a word, no reaction, no closure, just silence. And that is what's haunting them now. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine you're standing on a stage, spotlights blinding, crowd watching, you're ready to perform. But suddenly the microphone cuts out. Nothing, not a sound, just you, standing there, naked in silence. Now flip it. That's them. They expected noise from you, anger, begging, breakdowns, chaos, but all they got was silence. And now, like a broken mic on a packed stage, they're stuck trying to perform with no script, no feedback, no control. That's what your silence did. It stripped away their power. It handed them a mirror instead of a reply. And my friends, not everyone can survive the truth they see when the reflection is finally honest. See, most people believe silence means defeat. They'll tell you if you're not reacting, you're losing. That's the lie. That's the poison they fed you to keep you emotionally available, constantly explaining yourself, constantly proving your worth. But I'm here to flip that lie upside down. Because silence, real silence, the kind that comes from clarity, not cowardice, is the most powerful language in existence. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That means you don't scream, you don't chase, you don't try to convince someone of your value. You become silent, because silence says, I don't need you to understand anymore. It says, your chapter is done, and I don't need to burn the book. I'm just reading a better one now. They're not bothered by your silence because it's peaceful. They're bothered because it's unknown. And unknown drives the mind mad. People can handle anger. They can handle rejection. But what they can't handle is being forgotten, overlooked, ignored like background noise. Because that hits the ego like a ghost slap to the soul. No warning, no closure, just emptiness where control used to live. You were once their favorite addiction, your energy, their free supply. You poured out validation like it was your job. And now that it's gone, now that you pulled the plug and walked away without a sound, they don't know how to function without it. That silence, they hear it in every song, feel it in every scroll, taste it in their lonely nights. It lingers, it whispers, it wrecks. So if you've been wondering whether staying silent is working, let me answer you clearly. It's destroying them. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because they thought you'd never leave the stage, and now all they hear is silence, and that silence is louder than any apology you could have given, louder than any explanation they pretended to want. Stay strong, my friends. You're not being passive, you're being precise. You're not avoiding the fight, you're refusing to fight for someone who treated you like an option. That's real strength, that's real peace, that's real power. So write this in the comments right now. Silent, strong, untouchable. Let the world see it. Let them feel it. And if you're ready to let your silence speak volumes, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me. Because what's coming next, it'll flip the game forever. Number 1, they crave your reaction, but you gave them stillness. They weren't scared of your anger, they were scared of your absence. You see, folks, when you stopped reacting, something inside them cracked. Not because you became cruel, but because you became quiet. Not a dramatic exit, not a storm of words, just stillness. Like a candle that was burning bright 1 second and then snuffed out the next. No smoke, no flame, just darkness. And now they're standing in that dark room, reaching for something that's no longer there. Let me paint this for you. Imagine someone trying to punch a ghost. They swing, they throw jabs, they scream, and the ghost just stands there, untouched, unaffected, unfazed. That's what your silence feels like to them. Because before, every time they pulled back, you chased. Every time they twisted the knife, you bled on command. You gave them the drama, the dialogue, the emotional movie they needed to feel important. And now you've ended the show. And you know what's wild? They didn't expect this. They thought they still had you on the hook. They thought your emotions were their playground, but you changed the game. You took the ball and walked off the field without warning, without permission, without noise. And that stillness, it's the loudest thing they've ever heard. This is where the questions start flooding their mind. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't they angry? Did I go too far? Are they done with me? That silence becomes a mirror, and suddenly they're forced to look at their own reflection. And let me tell you, not everyone likes what they see in the mirror when the noise is gone, because without your emotional fireworks distracting them, all they have left is the truth, the guilt, the shame, the weight of knowing they pushed you too far, and now they're on the outside looking in. And here's the part they don't tell you in all those self-help books. Most people don't want your healing. They want your reaction, because your reaction proves they still matter, that they still have a piece of your soul, that they can still push your buttons like before. But when you don't flinch, when you smile quietly and let go, that's when their ego starts to bleed. That's when their mind becomes their punishment. People are addicted to attention. It's the currency of this generation. And you, my friend, were giving it out for free. You were the bank. You were the never-ending source of emotional energy. They could withdraw whenever they wanted. Arguments, attention, validation, the whole deal. And then you closed the vault. Quietly, with no warning, with no explanation. You just stopped giving. Let me ask you something. Why do you think it's so hard to go silent? Why does it burn at first? Because you were trained to respond, conditioned to explain, brainwashed into believing that if you didn't fight, you didn't care. But here's the truth. Fighting for someone who's destroying your peace isn't love. It's self-abandonment. Silence is not cowardice. It's clarity. It's the first real sign that you've stopped betraying yourself to make someone else feel powerful. As Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. You're not here to feed egos anymore. You're not here to play therapist to someone who doesn't want to heal. You're not here to keep bleeding to prove your loyalty. That version of you, dead, buried, reborn in stillness. Let them sit in the silence. Let them wonder. Let their own mind do the damage they thought you would. Because what they fear most is not your rage, it's your peace. That unsettling, untouchable stillness that says, I don't need this chaos anymore. It's not just powerful, it's deadly. And yes, it will feel unnatural at first. You'll want to scream. You'll want to type out long texts, send voice notes, explain yourself one more time. But stop, take a breath. Remember who you're becoming. Every time you stay silent, you reclaim a piece of your soul. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you shift from being a character in their story to the author of your own. And slowly, they start to feel it. Not right away, not when you want them to, but eventually, it hits, that hollow feeling, that ache in the chest when they scroll and you're nowhere to be found. That sting of seeing you thrive in silence while they're stuck trying to figure out how they lost someone who used to give so much and now gives nothing. You don't need to explain your growth. You don't need to announce your healing. You don't need to prove a single thing. Your silence says it all, and it speaks in a frequency only their guilt can hear. So, my friends, if you've chosen silence, stand firm in it. Don't break your stillness just because they're uncomfortable in their noise. You owe yourself peace more than you owe anyone an explanation. Let your silence be your statement. Let it be the closing chapter they never expected. Let it haunt them. Let it heal you. And right now, in the comments, I want you to write it loud and proud, calm, cold, unbothered. Let the world see that you've made the shift, that you're no longer here to perform. You're here to evolve. Number 2. You were their emotional supply. Now you're a ghost. They didn't fall in love with your face. They fell in love with your energy, your availability, your validation, your constant emotional investment. You were a source, a pipeline, a giver, the well they kept returning to because it never ran dry. But now the well is empty. Now the source is gone. Now you're a ghost. And they don't know how to breathe without the oxygen you used to provide. Let's make something brutally clear. When someone is used to taking from you, they don't just notice your absence, they suffocate in it. You were their mirror, their comfort zone, their emotional punching bag, their safety net. They treated you like a background app that never stops running, draining, invisible, always on. You became the good morning text they didn't appreciate until it vanished. You were the one who checked in on their mental health while they neglected yours. You were the ear that listened without judgment, the voice that soothed without fail, the presence that stayed long after they started pulling away. And now that presence is gone. You didn't just walk away, you evaporated. No storm, no fire, just vapor. That's what messes with them the most. The calmness of it, the cold, eerie quiet of someone who no longer needs to be needed. Because let's be honest, they never thought you'd leave. They thought you were addicted, hooked, caught in the cycle, desperate for their love, desperate for their crumbs. They thought you'd always show up, that they could call and you'd answer, that they could push you and you'd bend. But something changed, didn't it? There came a moment, quiet, private, where your soul whispered, "Enough. Enough explaining. Enough hoping, enough bleeding on the floor of someone who only loved you when it was convenient." And in that moment, you chose stillness. You chose dignity. You chose to remove the supply. Now they're left with the silence. And here's the secret nobody warns them about. The one who gives has all the power. As long as you're giving, they feel strong, superior, in control. But when the giver stops giving, when the emotional supplier cuts the cord, that's when the withdrawal starts. That's when the cravings kick in. And emotional withdrawal isn't pretty. It's rage, confusion, regret, and obsession. You became their dopamine hit, their daily dose of "I'm still lovable," but you weren't a partner. You were a drug. And now you're gone. Now they check their phone and there's nothing. No message, no missed call, no reminder that you're still orbiting their life. Just space. Space and silence. And space, when it's not filled with attention, starts to echo. And those echoes are filled with regret. Regret for how they treated you, regret for assuming you'd stay, regret for not realizing your worth until it was already building a kingdom somewhere else. This isn't just about romance, this is about energy, about supply and demand, about how people feast on souls they didn't earn. They take and take until one day the soul wakes up and says, "I am not food." And you woke up. You didn't send a goodbye. You didn't post a dramatic quote. You didn't write a long speech about how you're healing now. You just vanished. And in that vanishing, you flipped the script. Because disappearing isn't weakness, it's strategy. The most dangerous man is the one who used to give everything and then stops. Not bitterly, not loudly, just decisively. Because that's not revenge, it's resurrection. People don't panic when you scream. They panic when you go still, because stillness means acceptance. And acceptance? That's terrifying. That means you're not trying to fix it. You're not trying to change them. You're done. And when they realize that, really realize it, they don't just miss you. They unravel. because your emotional supply wasn't just convenience. It was a shield from their own emptiness. And now that shield is gone. They're exposed to the guilt, the hollowness, the realization that maybe they pushed away the only person who ever truly saw them. And when they scroll through your messages, trying to piece together how it all slipped away, they don't find a fight, they don't find an explosion, they find silence. And silence is unforgiving. Silence doesn't offer comfort. It doesn't explain. It doesn't beg to be understood. It just is. It stands like a locked door that used to swing open every time they knocked, and now refuses to move. And oh, how they knock! Through memories, through old photos, through friends, through stories you once shared, looking for any crack, any sign, any window that tells them you still care. But there's nothing, because you've gone ghost, and this ghost doesn't haunt with chains. It haunts with freedom. It walks tall, it builds, it thrives. It glows in the distance, unreachable, untouchable, unforgettable. That's the paradox they never saw coming. They thought they were punishing you by pulling away, but you weren't the one who needed punishment. You needed peace. And now that you have it, they're the ones crumbling. Because every addict eventually has to face life without the high. And you were the high. They'll try to replace you, to refill the supply. But nothing hits the same. Nothing feels as rich, as whole, as real. Because you didn't just love them, you gave them parts of yourself, parts they'll never find again. And now they're left with the aftertaste. So stay ghost, stay gone, stay grounded. You're not being cruel, you're being clear. You're not disappearing to punish, you're disappearing to protect. Protect your energy, protect your worth, protect the man or woman you're becoming. They will reach, they will test, they will whisper, just to see if the ghost still listens. But don't flinch. Don't return to the role you've outgrown. Because the truth is, they never deserved the version of you they had. And now that version is gone. Let that haunt them. Comment this below if you feel the shift deep in your soul. I was the source. Now I'm the silence. And stay with me, because we're just getting started. Number 3. Silence is the mirror that reflects their guilt. You didn't block them. You didn't curse them out. You didn't post cryptic quotes online hoping they'd feel guilty. You didn't beg for closure, ask for reasons, or chase their half-hearted explanations. You just went quiet. And in that silence, something far more dangerous happened. They started hearing themselves, not your voice, not your arguments, not your pain, their own inner voice, the one they've been drowning out for years with drama, distraction, and deflection. But now, without your constant presence to absorb the noise, they're forced to sit with a version of themselves they don't even recognize. Because here's the truth. You were their distraction from themselves. Your love, your attention, your forgiveness. It all worked like a drug. Every time they ignored your boundaries, you forgave. Every time they ghosted you, you reappeared. Every time they disrespected you, you reasoned with them. They were never forced to confront the real cost of their behavior until you stopped responding, until you stopped justifying, until you went silent. Silence is the one thing they can't spin. They can twist your words, they can misinterpret your texts, they can mock your reactions. But silence? Silence is a blank canvas, and their guilt is the paint. It fills in every empty space with the truth they don't want to admit. And you know what that truth is? They were the villain in your story, not a misunderstood soul, not someone who was just confused. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew how much you cared. They knew your breaking points. They knew the pain behind your smile. And they chose to ignore it anyway. They played the role of victim so well when you reacted, when you defended yourself, when you cried. But now that there's nothing to fight, no reaction to provoke, no argument to twist, they're left with themselves. and for the first time, they're not liking what they see. This is where the guilt creeps in, not loud, not dramatic, quiet, just like your silence. It starts as a whisper, a question in the back of their mind. Did I go too far? What if I really did lose them for good? Why didn't I appreciate them when I had them? These questions don't go away. They echo, they fester, they spread like smoke under a closed door. Because guilt is a strange thing, it only shows up when there's no one left to blame. And now that you're silent, now that you're gone, there's no one else to pin it on. That's the real punishment, isn't it? Not your anger, not your revenge, but your calm, your peace, your indifference, because now they can't tell themselves they're just dramatic, or they're just emotional, or they're just overreacting. You took all their excuses and buried them in the graveyard of silence. And what they're left with now is what they ran from all along, accountability. They're remembering things differently now. They're rewatching the past like a movie where the ending suddenly makes sense, and it hits differently when you're not there to soften the blow. When you're not there to say, it's okay. When your silence says, you did this, and I'm done cleaning up the mess. There's a reason silence is used in interrogation rooms, in warfare, in spiritual awakening. It disarms the enemy. It breaks the noise. It strips everything down to the truth. And the truth is, they messed up something rare, something pure, something real. And the echo of that mistake, it's starting to scream in the empty spaces you used to fill. You weren't just a lover, you were a mirror. And when that mirror walked away, they were finally forced to see who they really were, without your light making them look better than they deserved. Let that sink in. You didn't change, you evolved, you didn't ghost them, you outgrew them, and your silence. It's not revenge, it's reflection. It forces them to confront their shadow without you standing in front of it, taking the hits. And this is the part that hurts them the most. You didn't say a word. You let their actions speak for themselves. You didn't try to tell the world your side. You didn't try to expose them, cancel them, or get even. You simply walked away and became a reflection of everything they pretended didn't happen. Do you know how rare that is? In a world full of people yelling for attention, trying to out-scream each other with heartbreak and betrayal, you chose silence. You chose class. You chose emotional sovereignty. And they don't know what to do with that, because now the silence is winning. It's making them double tap on old photos, wondering if you still think about them. It's making them stare at their phone at midnight, debating whether to break the ice. It's making them question their choices, their patterns, their character. Not because you told them to, but because silence did. And silence is the most honest teacher of all. They thought they broke you, but your silence shows otherwise. It says, I'm no longer emotionally available to the version of you that hurt me. It says, I didn't need closure. I found clarity. It says, I don't hate you, I just see you now, and I choose peace. This is the final stage. The part where they realize they weren't rejected, they were revealed. That your silence wasn't punishment, it was the truth they tried to ignore finally speaking back. So don't break the silence. Don't respond to the breadcrumbs. Don't fall for the guilt bait. Don't let them pull you back into the web of emotional manipulation just because they can't face the mirror. Let them live with it. Let them wrestle with their own echo chamber. Let the weight of their guilt grow heavier with every quiet day that passes. Let them discover, slowly and painfully, that your silence is not just distance. It's a decision, a boundary, a new beginning where they don't get to come along. Write this in the comments if you're done carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. Your guilt is not my burden. And remember this, your silence is not empty. It's full of truth. It's full of strength. And for them, it's full of guilt they can't escape. Let it echo, let it haunt, let it reflect. Number 4, they thought you'd chase. Now they're haunted by emptiness. They had it all mapped out. They thought they knew you. Predictable, emotional, always available. The one who shows up, the one who forgives, the one who stays. They expected the same cycle to repeat itself. Pull back, wait for your panic, let you spiral, and then watch you come crawling back. Arms wide, heart open, ready to prove your worth again. But this time, you didn't chase, you didn't text, you didn't ask for answers. You vanished, and now they're not confused, they're terrified. They're terrified because they played the game thinking you didn't know the rules. They counted on your attachment, your fear of abandonment, your craving for connection. What they didn't realize was that you weren't emotionally weak. You were just emotionally invested. And now that investment is over. They thought their silence would starve you, that you'd come begging for breadcrumbs, that the discomfort of being ignored would drive you to prove yourself harder. But instead, you went silent, cold, composed, unbothered. And now they're sitting in a room filled with their own echoes, haunted by a ghost they never thought would stop knocking. It's wild, isn't it? How they once rolled their eyes when your name popped up on their screen. And now they're staring at the same screen, hoping it lights up with you. How your availability used to annoy them. Now, your absence is driving them insane. This is the part they never saw coming, because they always believed that silence was their weapon, the psychological trick up their sleeve, ghosting you, ignoring you, acting unbothered to push you into panic. But what happens when the one they tried to manipulate turns silent too? What happens when the weak one becomes untouchable? They break, not loudly, not immediately, slowly, quietly, behind closed doors. Because when someone is used to being chased, the absence of pursuit doesn't feel like peace. It feels like punishment. And it forces them to ask questions they're not ready for. Did I go too far? Is it really over? Have they moved on? Did I lose them forever? And every unanswered question becomes another brick in the wall that separates them from your energy, from your presence, from the comfort they never acknowledged when they had it. Because let's be honest, they didn't just miss your love. They missed the way your love made them feel about themselves. Important, special, safe. And now that you're gone, they're just average again, unseen, uncelebrated. That's the sting. It's not just that they lost you, it's that they lost who they were when they had access to you. They lost the pedestal you put them on, the effort you gave, the way you made them feel like the center of a universe they never even tried to earn. And now they're falling back to earth, with no arms to catch them. Because here's the secret no one teaches. People confuse power with presence. They think because you're still around, still available, still talking, they still matter. They still have a hold. But when you disappear, when your silence becomes a wall they can't climb, that's when they realize the power was never in their silence. It was in yours. And yours came too late for them to prepare. You didn't argue, you didn't explain, you didn't post to make them jealous, you didn't beg to be understood, you just left, not out of spite, but out of clarity, out of emotional survival, out of knowing that you cannot heal in the same place that made you question your worth. So now the energy has shifted. They're the one checking, watching, lurking. You became the mystery, and mystery, especially after being the open book, is intoxicating, confusing, addictive. They want to decode you. They want to know what you're feeling, thinking, doing, but you've given them nothing. Not anger, not love, not hate, just nothing. And nothing hurts more than when someone who used to give you everything decides to give you nothing. You see, you didn't just remove yourself physically, you disconnected spiritually, emotionally, energetically. That cord they used to tug whenever they felt empty, it's been cut, and now they're reaching into the void, and all they feel is air. That's when the haunting begins. Every room they walk into reminds them of you. Every laugh sounds a little hollower. Every new connection they try to make feels cheap, because no one replaces the energy you gave. They weren't used to your silence, because they never imagined a world where you'd stop trying. But you did. You stopped trying to fix what was draining you. You stopped proving yourself to someone who only saw your worth when it benefited them. You stopped showing up for someone who never met you halfway. You stopped handing out loyalty to someone who treated it like a coupon, used it, then threw it away. And now that you've withdrawn, now that you've detached, they realize something they never wanted to admit. You were the one. Not because you begged, not because you gave endlessly, but because when you left, nothing felt the same. The energy shifted, the light changed, the background noise disappeared, and now they're stuck in silence with themselves, and the silence is winning. So don't you dare second-guess yourself. Don't you dare wonder if you're being cold, cruel, or heartless. You're not. You're being wise. You're protecting your soul. You're refusing to bleed for someone who clapped when you were cut. You're no longer the fool who dances for attention. You're the storm they didn't expect. The storm that says nothing, that makes no noise, that rolls in silently and changes everything. Let them sit in their emptiness. Let them wrestle with the ghost of what they lost. Let the silence echo so loudly it drowns out every excuse they once clung to. Let them haunt themselves, because chasing them won't bring you peace, but disappearing, that's where your power is. So drop this in the comments if you've felt the shift, if you've stopped chasing and now the silence is doing the work. I no longer chase, I vanish. And let that be your reminder. You are no longer available for people who only valued you when you were desperate. You are not a reaction. You are not a backup plan. You are the storm they didn't survive. Number 5. The mind fills the void with regret. That's when they break. They said nothing. You said nothing. But what they didn't expect was what happens in the nothing. Because silence is never just silence. It's a vacuum, a space, a mirror. And the human mind, it can't handle a blank page. It has to write something on it. And when you're gone, when your energy disappears, when your validation stops flowing, when you stop explaining, apologizing, and chasing, they're left alone with the most dangerous storyteller in the world, their own mind. And it's not kind. At first it feels like freedom to them, like control. They think they won. They think they proved a point. Look at you, not reacting, not reaching out, not begging for closure. They laugh, they post, they pretend for a while. But here's where the tables start turning, and they always turn. That silence you gave them. It's no longer a gap. It's now a loop, a mental loop they can't shut off. And this loop, oh, it starts whispering questions at night. Why haven't they said anything? Did I push them too far? What if they're done for real? Who are they talking to now? Did I just lose something I'll never replace? These questions don't come all at once. No, they creep in slowly, like a leak in the ceiling that drips, drips, drips until the entire roof caves in. That's how regret works. It's not an explosion, it's a slow flood, and now it's flooding them. Because you didn't do what they expected. You didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing they still held space in your mind. You didn't give them the luxury of watching you unravel. You gave them absence, and that's a curse for someone who craves control. You see, folks, people don't break when you scream at them. They break when you stop explaining. They don't shatter when you beg. They shatter when you disappear. Because once the noise is gone, the silence gets loud, and in that silence, all their lies, all their manipulations, all their gaslighting, it starts playing back like a movie with no edits, no filters, just truth. You used to be the distraction from that truth. Your love, your texts, your chasing, It all gave them a way to escape from what they really were. You gave them purpose. You gave them ego. You gave them a sense of being wanted. And now that you've stopped, they feel hollow. And the thing about hollow people is, they can't sit in silence. They can't sit in the space where your energy used to exist, because you didn't just leave the room. You took the light with you. And now, every shadow reminds them of you. Every new message they don't care about. Every post they scroll past without feeling anything. Every laugh that doesn't hit the same. That's the cost of your absence. It's not just missing you, it's missing the feeling you gave them, the worth, the warmth, the electricity. They try to fill the void. They go out, they flirt, they chase someone else. But no matter how many new faces they meet, the same question always returns. Why do they feel less? Because you weren't just a person, you were a source, a mirror, a fire. And now that fire is gone, they're stuck in a winter they can't thaw. Let's go deeper. The mind is a story-making machine, and when you disappear without closure, it doesn't say, "Oh well." It says, "What happened?" It starts building scenarios, fantasies, regrets. It rewinds old conversations. It tries to decode old texts. It looks for clues, signs, anything to make sense of why the game they thought they were winning suddenly flipped. And the worst part, they have no answers. Because you left nothing behind, no rants, no messages, no crumbs. You didn't even block them. You just disengaged. You left the stage, mid-performance, and didn't care who stayed clapping. And now they're playing detective in their own guilt. And guilt is a liar. It tells them they were right at first, that you'll come back, that you're just playing tough. But days pass, then weeks, and something starts to shift. Because now guilt starts telling the truth. Maybe they're done. Maybe they've healed. Maybe they've evolved past me. Maybe I ruined the best thing I had. Now their mind turns on itself. That's when they break. Not publicly, not all at once. No tears on Instagram, no apology texts. It happens in the quiet moments, at red lights, in the middle of songs, in the shower, when they're smiling with someone else, and suddenly your face flashes in their mind, and it doesn't leave. They try to blink it away, but the loop is playing. The regret is replaying. The silence is echoing. And it all leads to one devastating realization. You're not coming back. That moment. That's when their soul starts aching. Because you didn't punish them. You didn't fight them. You just left them to their own mind, their own shadow, their own emptiness. And no enemy is more brutal than the one that lives in your own head. You're not a ghost to them. You're a mirror, a reminder, a lesson. The one who walked away not in rage, but in rebirth. Let them sit in that void. Let their own mind do what your words never could. Let the regret cook in silence, because no closure will hurt more than the one they'll never get. And you just keep building, quietly, calmly, because your silence wasn't revenge, it was self-respect. And it's breaking them in all the places you once tried to heal. So if you've felt the shift, if you've gone silent and now their guilt is writing the rest of the story, drop this in the comments. My silence created their storm. And let that be your reminder. You don't need to say a word. The void you left behind is saying it louder than you ever could. Number 6. Your absence makes them question their entire identity. They didn't lose you. They lost the version of themselves that only existed when you were around. And now that you're gone, really gone, not just offline, they're not just missing you, they're questioning themselves. Because when someone is used to seeing their reflection through your eyes, eyes that admired them, forgave them, believed in them, your absence doesn't just leave a void, it leaves an identity crisis. You see, they built a version of themselves with your energy, your love, your time. You were their mirror, their audience, their echo chamber. You were the one who celebrated them, validated them, comforted them. You gave them a stage, even when they didn't deserve to perform. And now the spotlight is off. The stage is empty. The crowd is gone, and they're standing in silence, unsure of who they are without you watching. It hits differently when you walk away with grace, not bitterness. When you don't slam the door, when you don't curse their name, when you simply vanish, calm, cold, silent. That's when the unraveling begins. Because now they're not trying to win you back. They're trying to figure out who they are without the version of themselves that only bloomed under your warmth. Let's be real, my friend. You were the foundation. You were the consistency. The one who showed up when no one else did. And even if they didn't say it, even if they acted unbothered, deep down they built a huge part of their identity on the certainty that you'd always be there. So when you disappeared, the entire structure collapsed. They don't just wonder where you are, they wonder what they even mean anymore. Because if you're not chasing them, maybe they're not worth chasing. If you're not giving them attention, maybe they're not magnetic after all. If you don't care anymore, maybe the person they thought they were was just a reflection of your light and not something they ever actually built for themselves. That's what makes your absence different. It's not just space, it's a crack in their self-image, because before you walked away they had a script, they had control. You were the emotionally available one, the too nice one, the forgiver, the one who felt too much. And them? They were the one who held the power, the one who kept you guessing, the one who could come and go as they pleased while you stayed steady. But now the dynamic is broken. The game board flipped. You've become the question mark, and them. They've become unsure of everything, because if you're not chasing, not reacting, not even explaining, then maybe, just maybe, they were never as powerful as they thought. This is how identity cracks open. Slowly, like a mirror under pressure. They start feeling hollow in the places you used to fill. Their confidence doesn't hit the same. Their smile doesn't carry weight. Even the attention they get from others feels cheap now, temporary, disposable, because nothing hits like the energy you used to give. And they start noticing the absence in the smallest ways. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the way their phone doesn't buzz at the usual time, the way no one texts just to check in, the way their wins feel a little emptier without you clapping for them. That's the slow burn of identity loss. You were the one who reminded them they were special, who saw their hidden pain, who stayed when others would have left. And now that you've finally left, they're forced to question whether the version of themselves they loved was ever real, or if it only existed because you made it feel that way. That's what Stoic detachment does. It doesn't destroy people, it reveals them. When someone no longer has access to your light, they either learn to build their own, or they crumble in the dark, and most crumble, because your presence made them feel seen, worthy, grounded, and now your absence makes them feel exposed. Exposed to their own lack of emotional maturity, exposed to how little effort they actually gave, exposed to the truth that you were the one carrying the connection the entire time. And now that weight is gone. You're not responding. You're not watching their stories. You're not texting happy birthday or sending just checking in messages. You've left the building, and with you went the version of themselves they didn't realize was dependent on your attention to survive. They'll try to rebuild. They'll pretend. They'll post. They might even reach out eventually. Not always because they miss you, but because they miss how they felt about themselves when you were around. But don't be fooled. That's not love. That's ego looking for a reflection. And the strongest thing you can do now? Stay gone. Stay silent. Stay centered. Because the power of your absence is doing more than your presence ever could. It's forcing them to confront their own emptiness, their own flaws, their own dependence on the energy you used to pour out without hesitation. And you You've stopped pouring. You've started building. Let this be your new identity, calm, clear, detached. Not because you're cold, but because you're finally warm with yourself. You no longer define yourself by what you give to people who take you for granted. You define yourself by the peace you protect, the energy you guard, and the silence you choose, not out of fear, but out of power. So if your absence has started to shift the ground beneath their feet, if they've begun to crack where they once stood tall, understand this: they weren't missing you. They were missing the version of themselves that only existed when they had access to you. And now that version is gone. Write this in the comments if you've ever had to walk away to remind someone who you really are. Without me, they lost themselves. Because that's what happens when your presence was the only thing holding up their illusion. And your silence was the wrecking ball. Number 7. The less you explain, the more they obsess. Here's the brutal truth, my friend. Explanation is a luxury you stop affording people once they've shown they can't handle your presence, let alone your truth. And that's exactly what's driving them mad right now. You used to pour your heart out. Paragraphs, calls, tears, voice notes at midnight. Apologies for things you didn't even do, just to keep the peace, just to be heard. Now, you say nothing, and in that nothing, they're spiraling. Because when someone's used to you explaining every mood, every silence, every hesitation, they grow addicted to your emotional transparency. Your vulnerability becomes their security blanket. But the second you take that away, the moment you stop narrating your every move, they're left standing in front of a locked door with no key, pounding on it in confusion. And that pounding, that's not curiosity, that's panic. See, people don't obsess over clarity. They obsess over uncertainty. They don't lie awake thinking about what they already understand. They stay up all night trying to decode what they can't explain. That's the power of silence. That's the storm you now embody. You once gave them every detail, every breakdown of the breakdown. You explained yourself so thoroughly, you handed them your instruction manual, and they misused it. They weaponized your transparency. They used your softness as leverage. They twisted your honesty into guilt. But not anymore. Now they have no script, no updates, no access, nothing to control. And that's what breaks them. Not your rage, not your exit, not even your success. It's your silence, your mystery, your refusal to explain why you're no longer available, why you're no longer moved, why you no longer care. And now the questions begin. Did they really move on? Was I just a lesson? Are they seeing someone else? Do they hate me? Do they still love me? But there's no answer. Because you stopped playing the game. You stopped being the emotional supplier, and they're stuck trying to figure out what they did wrong without your help. Let them overthink. Let them invent stories. Let their mind become the haunted house you used to live in. Because the moment you stopped explaining, you created a vacuum. And that vacuum is louder than any argument, any apology, any confession. Here's what dark psychology teaches us. Mystery is more powerful than explanation. When you're predictable, people feel safe. Not emotionally safe, but in control. But when you break the pattern, when you flip the script, when the nice guy or too loving girl disappears and says nothing, that's when obsession is born. And this isn't about games. This isn't about manipulating anyone. This is about self-respect. This is about removing your energy from the places where it was never valued and finally understanding that not everyone deserves to know your side of the story. Let's be honest. You already explained. You explained with words. You explained with effort, with tears, with loyalty, with presence. You explained 1,000 times over. But they weren't listening. They were taking. And silence. That's the final explanation. That's the last message. That's the moment you say, I'm done repeating myself to someone who's already made up their mind. So now they're stuck reading between the lines you never wrote, obsessing over meanings you never gave, projecting their guilt onto your silence, hoping you'll slip, that you'll text, that you'll post something cryptic, but you won't, because you're no longer performing for their closure. You're building in silence, evolving in silence, healing in silence, and that silence, it speaks, it roars, it echoes. Every day you don't text them, every night you don't explain yourself, every moment you don't give them closure. That's when the obsession deepens. They'll check your profile, rewatch your stories, stalk your silence, looking for signs. Not because they love you, but because they don't understand how you slipped away so easily. Because they still don't realize you didn't slip. You chose to leave the moment they stopped treating your presence like a privilege. This is what they don't want to admit, that you were the stable one, the anchor, the protector, and now that you've gone quiet, they feel unmoored, adrift, emotionally naked. Because there's no longer anyone there to soothe them, validate them, absorb the blame, or carry the emotional load. Let them feel it. Let your stillness show them the weight you used to carry. Let your silence remind them that your energy was never free. It was sacred, and they treated it like background noise. Now they realize it was the music. You don't need to respond to their confusion. You don't need to explain your peace, because peace doesn't beg to be understood. It simply exists, and that existence, in the space they once polluted with chaos, that's the ultimate closure. They had access to your heart, to your effort, to your soul. And they fumbled it. They thought you'd stay, that you'd explain forever. But your silence proved what your words never could, that you were the one holding everything together. So let them obsess, let them wonder, let them sit in the confusion they created. And while they try to fill in the blanks, you go fill your cup. Because this chapter is no longer about proving your worth to someone who couldn't see it. It's about disappearing so powerfully they spend months trying to decode the silence that healed you. And if this entire journey, this shift from noise to stillness, resonates with your soul, if you've gone from over-explaining to complete emotional sovereignty, then leave this in the comments. No more explanations, only elevation. And walk away knowing the most powerful thing you ever said was nothing at all.